It's only it's only going out to the people that actually give us more details, so that we can
Excellent.
give you guys more details. So it's an open closed event. So
I love it.
so you guys will have a list of about 150 people that have given us all their details and registered and done all that stuff. We've had more interest than that, but the actual people that have given us all details are 150. So it's good.
Okay. That is very good. I heard some coaching the other day that making things available for instant recording um, takes away from people's engagement in what's going on. They don't take as good of notes. And one way to do that and still give them the recording is to tell them it may be up to 60 days before you get a recording on this. So, really make sure you get your top three takeaways from today so that you can use this material going forward and really integrate the top thing. This is our way of breaking through your mental constraints of being caught up in too much. We want
Yep.
you to get focused, get lasered in on the top three things you can take action on in the order of priority 1, 2, and 3. We're going to expose you to a lot of opportunities. So when you review this, you're going to find new things that you're going to be like, oh, I can add that to my list. So that's one possibility for you.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great. That's great, and I've written that one down. So that was good. That's a good takeaway. The other Jay is here now.
Excellent. Welcome, Jay. Let's do a quick sound check, and then you can go in the background, do peppermint, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're able to turn on your, do we need to give him co-host status to make that
Okay, now
happen?
I
There you
couldn't.
are.
I
Hey,
could.
Jay, nice background.
My background. It's what is the background? I put it on my computer, but I can't tell what is it. Am I looking at the universe?
Yeah, I think you're looking at a aerial view of the Earth, one of those like satellite views at night, sort of thing.
Oh, all right. It looks intimidating and not ominous, but it looks somewhat fascinating. So, can you see me and hear me?
Yep, we can see you and we can hear you. Brian, you can see and hear him.
Yes, yes.
Good.
And
Okay.
are you seated at the level you're going to be seating at, BD?
I'm where I'm going to be. Yes.
You try. Is that better, Brian?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pull
Yeah.
your front of
Yeah.
your camera there. Perfect.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
That's the
great.
trying
right.
to make sure that I don't look like a short version.
Yeah, just all you can see is Jay's head. He's just a floating head.
So, so give me just a very quick, because I know Alan is probably more of the main, and at least that's sort of how I understood it. But tell me what, real quickly, we are trying to accomplish for you and your audience so that I make sure that I am congruent to that and don't go unintentionally rogue on you.
No, you're not going to go rogue on me. What I loved about when we were on our podcast, you went through the 7 things that people are missing out on right now, or some decisions that they can make to buy another company, find salespeople. So I'm really trying to get people into. We're coming out of this thing, whatever this thing was, and there's
Yes.
some decisions that we're going to be making now that that are going to change your life. Whether it's a direction to buy somebody, sell your business,
Yes.
retire, do more, whatever. And it's all about that. Is let's get some great ideas into people's hands, and then having Alan be the okay. Now I'm going to make this decision to do this. Let's use Alan's app. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
that's
Good.
what I really. It's really to bring back people
Okay.
making decisions and moving
Cool. All
themselves
right.
forward.
Okay. And so you're going to do it. You want to start with me or all of us sharing a blunder that occurred and had severe consequences. Is that correct or incorrect?
That's correct. So what we're going to start off with is just actually kind of your thought process. So you're going to get your kind of 15 minutes of just here's some things that I see happening right now. Rich is going to give us 15 minutes of what he sees happening right now. Alan's going to walk us through the decision making app, the thoughts around decisions. Then we're going to do a fireside chat where we can actually kind of open up a little bit more and share
Okay.
ideas around proper blunders.
Fabulous. Okay. And then I didn't look, and it's fine, whatever it is, because it's blocked, but I didn't look at the time. How long are we going to be together?
We're going to be together for a total of 2 hours.
Okay, cool.
And so it's essentially you for 15, Rich for 15. Alan's got about
All of
30
us.
because he's going through his thing.
It's
And then we're
fine.
firesiding and Q&A.
And while Alan is talking, will I be visually or do I have the
I
ability?
think we're going to let Alan have while
Right,
you're
so
speaking, you're
I
going to be
I
spotlighted.
can be making some notes or whatever I want to be, and it will not be deterrent to the
Correct.
viewer.
You won't detract from, when you are not speaking, you won't be detracting from Rich or from Alan while they're doing this. So
Okay,
you'll essentially have an hour to work
great.
while
Okay, cool.
you're in the middle of that
Great.
before I
Then,
bug you.
just for because I don't remember, is this live or is this recorded?
Both. But it's
Oh,
live, and then we like we were
You'll
talking
replay.
about with
You'll
Brian.
replay.
Replayed, but only to people that ask you or ask whoever, ask us for your information. We'll say, we'll only give it to you if we can feed Jay your information, then you can have.
So that's
then
great. And remind me the size of your audience.
we have 150 signed, so we'll probably have because it's Zoom, we'll probably have 190 to 100 in the room, and
Okay.
then 50 that'll say, oh, can you pass us
Hey,
along the
very cool.
recording?
All right, great. All right, I am going to refill my coffee, run to the bathroom, and I'll just go visually off, and I'll be here as soon as you're ready, okay?
Rock and roll. Thank you very much, Jay.
Okay, you're very welcome. All right.
And BD, when you and Jay were talking, your volume was one notch under Jay. Is there a way to tap your gain up on your microphone by like a very small percentage? Or just get a little closer to your microphone, or
I'll probably just get a little closer to my microphone. Let me go grab
half
one
step
thing
up.
first. I'll
Okay,
go grab another
And
microphone.
Yes,
Brian,
sir.
I worked until 10:30, but I need
Excellent.
to do 2 or 3 more cuts, and I have a request, and you probably already did it, but I want you to do it again.
Okay.
I want you to send me an editable PowerPoint so that I can do a cut on it over the weekend myself, and then give it to you with instructions maybe on if you're around. I'm coming back Monday afternoon. Maybe we can talk for a few minutes Monday afternoon.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm going to do
I'll be
the
very grateful
usual.
because it's, I mean, I've got so much cool stuff in it, but it's just, I've got to move it around and then expand it. And if I get it started for you and then I say, here's what I want, I think you can run with it quickly.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Make sure and then I'll ask you because I've never done a PowerPoint that worked trying to create it. I always screw it up. So you can tell me how to edit it. Okay.
Yeah, you can. The one I'm going to give you, you can delete everything and there'll still be another version. So you don't need to
That's great.
worry.
Yeah, that'll be good. Okay. I'll be back in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
All right,
Brian.
give me a sound check, BD.
Brian, how's the mic there? Is that better?
Right there, that speaking level is perfect.
Cool.
I
just plugged in a new mic, or not
Okay.
just I switched microphones.
Is that the one in front of you?
Yes.
Excellent. Does everybody agree with me? Can I get a thumbs up on the? Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Yeah, I don't want to start any wars today.
No, it's good. It's always great. You guys do a lot more than we do on these things.
Is Brian able to stay on
Right.
while we wait for Rich?
Yeah, well, we've got Dr. Allen's Tio's on, so I don't know
Okay, good.
if Allen's with Teo or not.
No, we are in 2 separate countries.
Okay, perfect. 2 separate countries. That's okay.
But that's close now.
Digitally, that's very close.
So he's currently in Las Vegas, and I'm in Sweden. So it's quite a distance.
Nice.
Where in
Wow.
Sweden?
Sweden.
A little, really small town, only
Okay.
a few thousand.
Then I wouldn't know it.
No.
Stockholm or somewhere else. Somewhere else. Got it.
Stockholm and everywhere else in Sweden.
Yeah, that's about it, I think.
I was there when I was in my late teens, and we went to a cathedral there, and was only there for a couple of days, but it's just a gorgeous country. So much ocean to see. The summer times are just amazing. So
Yeah, really.
Perfect. Got people coming into the waiting room.
And I also thought it was interesting that we're holding this in British Standard Time. I like
Yes.
that. It's good. We can all relate to that.
Yes, a couple days ahead of Independence Day. So
Yes.
an
And
American in Britain is doing an Independence
go.
Day broadcast.
yeah, and there is a minority of Americans that do want to use the metric system.
Minority, very much.
But I'm one of them.
Are you?
I'm a metric leaning human. So I think that distinction, like, are you pro metric or
Prometric. Is that one of the? We're not going to build a wall, yes, but it's going to be in meters. It's going to be in meters, and all the people in metric are going to stand on the other side. Be a very small wall, but
yeah, I'm tired of missing Mars. I just
there's.
Good morning, baby.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Rock and roll.
Hi, Brian.
Jay's
Good morning.
already had his little mic test, and now you've got your mic test. That's good.
and there's a little bit of echo in your room. Can you say a little bit more, Dr. Allen?
Is that any better or not?
Is anyone else hearing this? One of the things that I've done is I put a towel under my desktop between me and my microphone, and it takes away some of the reverberation that comes from out there. So if you have a piece of cloth, that might be a way of just taking out that echo really quick.
I've put on my AirPods. Is that any better?
Actually, right there, yeah. Doesn't I thumbs up? Yeah, I think that's
Cool.
better.
You don't want it in your pocket.
And yeah, I'm just trying to get everyone at the same height as BD. So you're looking good. So that's right about the point where everybody's at. So good. You're a little bit more centered. If you want to raise up, that's fine too. And you're a little bit closer to the screen. So if you want to lean back, that'll put everybody at about the same levels. All right, good. Tech check done. 4 minutes to go. Enjoy.
We got Rich still flying in.
Got one more.
Rich will make it work. He's
I
tech,
know
he's tech
he's-
savvy,
He'll
And-
make it
and
all
he's
happen.
And he's talking about, the secrets. So, he might be behind the curtain. So,
Yes. Perfect.
Let's see here. I'm going to mute myself because I missed a call.
Go for it. You're good. Yeah, both Jay is
Okay.
muted, and so is.
I'm not
Brian.
now. Okay. And I can turn it off. I just tell me if you want me muted.
No, you're fine. You're perfectly fine right now. We're just waiting. We're just blending
Okay.
in right now. We're just waiting for Rich to pop in.
Yes, I requested for him to start video and he said later.
Later. He's doing his hair.
Okay. And where are you geographically?
In Birmingham, UK.
Okay. And Birmingham is it an industrial city?
It was definitely an industrial city, but now it's coming in to be more creative. We still have Jaguar Land Rover and BMW and quite a few. It's kind of a Detroit-ish, but
That's
now
it.
it's quite tech and kind of medical driven now.
Is it a large city?
Yeah, it's kind of Chicago-esque,
Okay.
1.5 million.
Yeah, that's but it's inland. It's not on the water.
Yeah, I know it's the furthest you can get from water in the UK, which is 70 miles. So
And you might have told me before, but what got you there?
it's Edward Jones, my employment originally, but then we set up on our own after the GFC, after the global financial crisis, and
Right.
all that type of stuff. So it was fun and kind of one of the decisions we had to make, which will be kind of bringing in that for everybody. That's my little intro presentation about
Yeah,
the decisions that got us to this spot.
BD, is it okay if I share the screen? I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
test
that
your
you've
share
got
screen,
that.
please do.
Alan, how are things in Las Vegas?
It is very good, actually. It's beautiful weather and everything is really sensible. So no complaints.
Very good.
It says disabled, BD. I think you have to change it on the security settings.
Go for it. Maman's got it. So Maman will make you co-host if not already.
Jay, I'm always trying to step up my game with dress code when I'm on a call with you.
That's so funny.
What'd you say, Maman? I heard you, Maman, but what'd you say?
Sorry, it's not allowing me to make him co-host. So I think you master host will have to do.
Okay, let's see if I can make him co-host. Yes, I'm master host. So
Or just enable screen sharing, I think is the other way.
I just did it for you. So let's see.
Okay,
There
let's
you
see.
are.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, I think we're all set to go then.
So is Rich on?
So
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Rich. How are you?
I am good.
How was your food?
Good. And I put on a red shirt so that I don't blend into the background. So
Well, yours is always so colorful on LinkedIn, man. It's all the colors of the rainbow in the background.
Rich,
Yeah.
a parenthetical question. How did that drip, did it last for you when you did the drip?
I've been taking other stuff, so I can't really tell, but like I feel fantastic. And
Really good.
I found I found a place where I can buy NAD like for 300 a gram, and I found another place that I can buy NAD for $30 a gram. I'm trying to figure out how I can test the $30 a gram to see if it's good enough to inject it.
I don't even know, is it sold in a solid and then it's just put into?
Guys, it's not to cut you off, but it's 6:01. So let's
Okay.
start letting people in.
Yes, people are still coming in, so let's wait another minute. So
Okay, sounds good. I'll let you boss it around. You're good, Mom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
Jay, and sorry,
No,
Rich.
don't
No worries.
So
And I can
BD,
talk
do you
about
just
that
want to
stuff.
clarify again our outline, our agenda? So who's going to be talking first, and just clarify that so we
I'm
all
talking
prepare.
I'm talking first. I'll hand over to Jay. I'll thank Jay. I'll then hand over to Rich, and then I'll thank Rich, and then I'll come to you, Alan. And once you've gone through your presentation, then we're gonna have a fireside chat to talk about kind of all together with you, Jay, Rich, and I. Is that good? So
Yes, and
Jay,
the
Rich,
first discussions is everybody first sharing just their major mistakes and how it's impacted them and what they've learned from it, or do you keep that for the fireside chat?
We'll keep that for the
end?
fireside. The first one is kind of everybody talking about what they're seeing right now in the world, kind of in the market, and what they see in their client base and stuff. I'll tee it up as we come in, and I know you guys are awesome public speakers, so I figured 15 minutes on something, a softball, hopefully. We'll get there, and then the fireside will be a lot more around here, tell us some errors, tell us some things that are happening. Is that cool?
Yep.
Whatever you like on my side.
Okay, I just sent a message to the waiting room that we will start in 1 minute. So if you can get ready, and then I'll play a video that is only 1 minute saying that we're going to start, and kind of some housekeeping points about questions, and BD will go and he will introduce you. Okay, everyone, fine?
It's great.
Perfect. Thanks, Maman.
You're welcome. I'll stop my video and mute, but I'm here, so anything just write.
So if everybody else can mute for a second, then I'll keep on, and then I'll call you. I'm going to introduce you, but then Jay will be first to introduce.
Perfect. Georgia, Paul, if you want to stop your camera as well, feel free. Okay.
This is always fun, the technology of Zoom. So thank you very much for coming out today to Better Business, Faster Decisions. I'm Dalton. I am the Strategic Director at Rockfine Group. And today we're going to talk about better business, faster decisions. So I'm going to tell you all why we should be thankful for Spain and why we're all here because of Spain. And I know if you're an England fan, you might be scared because Spain could be wandering around in the background waiting for us in the finals. So I'll tell you why we're here because of Spain. But first, I want to talk about decisions. Good decisions come from experience. Experiences come from bad decisions. I'm not trying to teach you how to, I know you can read, but Mark Twain said this best, is when we're looking at what we've done in our lives, the decisions that we've made, good or bad, are the things that influence our forward decisions. But the reason we're here because of Spain is when I graduated from high school, I either had the opportunity to go to university or go to Spain. And so what I really wanted to look at was, okay, if I went to university, I had to go the normal route, or if I went to Spain, I could learn something and actually have a little bit of fun and go to a different place. When I came back from Spain, I had another choice. I had learned this language. I came back and from going towards university, I had to choose my kind of career path. And so I either had Russell Investments and I could become a chartered financial analyst, or I could go to Walmart and learn how to sell stuff. So I worked for Walmart and made that decision to start to sell groceries all over the West Coast in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Alaska, and Montana. So actually a patch as big as Europe. But I learned something there by making that decision. Then working for Walmart, I had the opportunity to either go to Argentina, sounded interesting, go to Texas, Killeen, Texas. If you've ever been there, it's a dust bowl. Or guess what? Pack my bags and go. So they didn't tell me I had to, but I decided to leave and go out and see what I could do in the real world. So when I left, I tried to figure out what I was going to do. I had to make another decision. I looked at laser tag. I looked at buying burrito franchises. I looked at all these things, but I followed the nepotistic route and I followed my dad into financial services. This is Bart Dalton Sr. here, and we're in Spain, once again, eating ice cream. And then guess what? In 2001, entering the stock market and coming out after 1997 beginning, thinking it was amazing, there was a stock market crash, the tech bubble. I lived in Seattle and we had all sorts of people that were there in Microsoft, Amazon, and guess what? Their portfolios tanked. And it was a hard time to be a stockbroker when all these people were smarter than you, now lost a lot of money. So I had to figure out what was next, what was happening. So my next decision, when I got a call from Jim Weddle, who is the senior partner of Edward Jones, 25,000 people in the company. And he gave me a call and said, do you want to try something new? I said, yeah, let's try something new. He said, why don't you come to England and help us build our new practice over there. And we took it from what was 120 brokers to 450 brokers. We took it from a huge number of assets to a mega number of assets. But then guess what happened? Another market crash. So market crash, global financial crisis. I think some of us have been there. And guess what? They said, we're going to shut up shop. Jones said, we're going back to the US, and you either have a decision to move back with us or go ahead and go forward and do your own thing. So we chose to do our own thing. We still manage some money. So we have about 40 million in assets that we manage in the background. We have a great little business helping people make sure that they can manage their wealth. But that moved us into helping people sell their businesses and really bringing in that wealth to help us out. So we've helped people move things forward. So that decision to make that retirement decision or sell your business is a big decision. That then led me to write 3 books, one on selling your business, one on building a network, and one on moving yourself to the other side of the table with your client to make an assisted purchase. But guess what? In that time frame, I've made some bad decisions. I've had a divorce. I've had multiple failed businesses. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of personal wealth or pounds. I've broken up with numerous business partners and created a mountain of stress. That then led me to another decision. How can I share this with the rest of the world? So I created the Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast. There's 120 episodes. And that allowed me to meet some amazing people. And you're going to get to meet some of them today. But guess what? It's been a very challenging time recently. I don't know if you know this little guy, but over the last 18 months, he's kind of changed the spectrum and the landscape of how we do business, how we interact with people. And it's given us the opportunity to be on a call today where we have about 70 people online with us, got about 50 people watching offline, and about another 50 people that are waiting to see what happens after this because they've got other things going on. We've all made great decisions, but that podcast decision and the coronavirus have led us to this amazing day where I'm going to get to introduce you to 3 gurus. We're going to get a chance to hear from each of them, tell us a little bit about their decisions, about what they're doing and how they're moving forward. 1 second. And we're going to get to learn from the gurus' mouths themselves. First, we're going to hear from Jay Abram, the $21 million man. This is a man that Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, has on his podcasts and has on his stage. You get to hear from him. Jay is amazing. When I had him on the podcast, he changed my life. The things we applied to our business moved us forward. And then guess what? He introduced me to another amazing man, Rich Schefren, who is changing people's lives to the tunes of billions in their online building communities, moving themselves forward. If you look him up everywhere, Wikipedia, everywhere else, you'll see Rich is changing lives online. And then you're going to get to hear how to make faster decisions and make them better from Dr. Alan Barnard. He's a leading change psychologist. And guess what? He's going to talk to us about constraints. And he will tell you about the one word that will change your whole life when it comes to decision making. But this is how Spain brought us together. So whether you're worried about them meeting us in the Euros or moving yourselves forward, this is how Spain's brought us together. So, a la Madrid, and here we go. What's coming up next is we're going to hear from the 3 gurus. We're going to hear how their bad decisions or our bad decisions have led us to where we are today. You're going to get to hear directly from Jay and directly from Rich talk about what's happening in their industry, what opportunities they see in short little snippets, which short for them, they're used to talking for hours, and we're going to get to talk for 15 minutes. And then Alan is going to walk us through for about a half an hour on how we can use the Harmony decision-making app, which I'm sure you've downloaded and looked at, hint, hint, wink, wink, to make sure that you're making better decisions and you're making them faster. Make sure, just like Maman said in the video ahead of time, we're hashtagging better business, faster decisions. And if you're a big Insta follower, then you've got the real Jay Abrams, you got the real Rich Schefren, and you got Dr. Alan Barnard. Make sure you're getting us out there on social, because this is what it's all about: creating community, creating noise, making things happen. That is me, BD Dalton, bringing you you now fellow Spaniards, to better business, faster decisions. And I'm going to now introduce you to, and Maman will bring him on, Jay Abraham. This is the guy, the $21 billion man. He is awesome. And he is going to give us amazing insights. And then we're going to hear from him again in the fireside chat, where you're going to get to ask him questions overall. So Maman, if you could highlight and spotlight Jay.
I'm here.
He's here.
Here I am.
Here he is. Jay, I will, you can talk like the best of them. So thank you so much for coming on and share with everybody today. It's thanks to Alan and Rich for bringing us all together. But Jay, could you just tell us what you're seeing out there, what's happening for people, and kind of what you're seeing out there in this post-COVID world?
Well, I mean, I think the vast majority, very honestly, have or are pivoting. You know, they're having to change their business model. I mean, now that it's opening up, they're probably evolving a bit more, but almost everybody had to adapt some kind of a modification to their business model, their revenue approach, their access vehicles. It was a really great period for people who were really strongly ensconced online. It was a very stressful period for people who weren't, as you and I, as you talked offline to me, and we were very focused during COVID on literally identifying windows of opportunity that had made themselves available that most people weren't availing themselves of. Relationships they could really structure, partnerships they could structure, endorsement deals they could structure with other people, because everyone was looking to enhance their revenue and their profitability and their income sources. There are many, and there still are many really great acquisitions that are available. Obviously, the big players, the PE firms, are looking at all the seemingly great companies, but there are all kinds of opportunities with weaker companies that have pieces of the puzzle that can dramatically enhance your business. Things like what people buy before, during, after, instead of your business. We've tried to get people to actually compete against themselves. We've tried to get people to understand that this is a big part of my current work and thinking, BD, and that is that there are 40 different categories available to any business owner today, each one of which of these are all in the revenue side of the business, each one of which has the capacity to elevate performance, at least geometrically, and that within each one, there are dozens potentially of levers. And we try to get people to recognize that their personal lives, your life, my life, has been all our lives enhanced, foundationally driven by levers that make everything we do easier, bigger, better, more sustainable. Things like brooms and wheelbarrows and screwdrivers and light switches and car jacks and crowbars and push buttons that open car doors and cranks that open windows and pop-top cans. But most people don't realize that are business owners, that there are loads of levers, pardon my voice, available within your business that you can capitalize on. And we've taken a concept of looking at geometric exponential performance and asking ourselves, well, if you've got 40 different categories, each one of which can enhance and stimulate exponential profit performance without any investment or risk, what happens if you add many together? And I was always fascinated by that question, BD, but I never looked it up. And I finally looked it up, and I was shocked to find out that mathematically, and Alan already knows this, there are 5 or more gradients of performance capability, believe it or not, above and beyond what is called exponentiation. So here's exponential. You can go above and beyond that, 5 different levels: tetration, hexation, heptation, pentation, octation. I think that's they. And my premise now is, if you can perform beyond exponential, and it's a mathematically given reality, you should never allow your revenue system to operate in the incremental zone ever again in any facet when you have all these levers available. Most people don't know what they are. So we've gotten very fixated on taking your business profits beyond exponential. We've gotten fixated in doing it through what we call revenue system optimization, RSO for short, and it analyzes, identifies, examines, explores every element decision-wise of your revenue system, why you're doing it, why you've just, how you're doing it, who you're doing it for, what you're trying to do to attract people, convert people, monetize people, sustain the economic relationship. We have also, and then I'll pass it on to anybody else. We've also embraced what you would understand from your investment world is asymmetric return thinking, where everything you do in your revenue system is done with a focus on very limited risk, but very unlimited upside performance. And when you integrate all that, it may sound a little bit esoteric or abstract, you end up with an extraordinary explosion in performance. And my focus is almost always multiplying the bottom line with far greater expanse than the top line, then making the top line grow, but the bottom line grow much bigger, faster, and significant. So that's what I'm seeing. Okay.
That's really good. And so I'm going to rewind you back really. So competing against yourself, that sounds foreign. That sounds crazy. What would that look like for just give us an example of a business?
I'll give you a couple of examples.
Go for it.
One is, no matter how you drive your business, if you do any marketing, if you run Facebook, you're not the only whatever kind of generic company you are on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. You're competing with all kinds of other people who theoretically, if they're running ads continually, are making money from them, right? So yes. If you've got this much of the market and the market's that big, you could have other companies, products, services that are the same, but with different names competing against yourself, number one. Number two, you could have alternative forms. Let's take a simple example. Let's say that you were in the business of selling a supplement you would ingest for weight loss, okay?
Yeah.
So the first thing is you could sell other weight loss supplements, couldn't you?
Yeah, you compete against yourself.
If you look at people who are fanatical about losing weight, they typically do not limit their pursuit to one category or activity. Concurrently or continuously, they are doing other things. You're competing in an ingestible supplement. You're competing with other supplements. You're competing with portion controlled food. You're competing with personal trainers. You're competing with gyms. You're competing with equipment, Peloton. You're competing with diets. You're competing with recipes. You're competing with books. And if you understand that and you already know the market for weight loss, why wouldn't you want to compete against yourself?
That's awesome. So it's all fabulous and things that we'll get there. And when we come back to the fireside chat, it's really some of those things that you talked about at the beginning, which was the decisions are not decisions that some of the clients have made and things around that we'll bring back into it. But those are amazing. The exponential growth and the focus there. It's great. And that's why I think you work really well in tandem with Rich.
And I've got a really interesting question. Is it just I, or is my name backwards?
Your it's forward on us. So it's because Zoom reverses it for you.
To me backwards?
You're perfectly forward to us, Jay.
I did it yesterday when I did your wallpaper, and I said to my daughter who helped me, I said, my name's backwards. She goes, no, it won't be backwards when the audience sees it. I see it backwards. Anyhow, but and the point I was going to make, one more point, is that in many businesses, people are always looking for the next new drug. So if in my example, hypothetical of a weight loss, most people don't go the distance. They'll try something for a period of time, abandon it, try something else, try something else. But a lot of them do the same, do many things concurrently. That's why when you compete against yourself, you multiply your success probability, not just incrementally, but exponentially.
That's amazing. It's fabulous stuff. So Jay, I know you were my only 30-minute podcast that took me 50 minutes. So I know we could talk forever. And you drop gold nuggets everywhere. But I'm going to take us over to Rich now. And Rich is going to talk to us about building communities. We'll bring you back in the fireside chat.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. That was amazing. Nuggets of wisdom. Now I'm bringing on Rich Schefren. So Rich, we got you on.
Myself. There we go.
There we are.
All right.
So Rich, building communities, building online businesses, taking people forward, that's your world. And it has the last 18 months accelerated that, made it better, made more people want to talk to you. And then where do you see your tribe and your community going? So I'll hand it over to you and I'll let you have the spotlight.
Sure. You know, there's been so much activity online during COVID, and you know, actually all the businesses all my clients' businesses, everyone that I deal with actually had their best year ever last year. And this year is shaping up more of the same. Especially the clients that I have that are in e-commerce, some of the bigger clients, you know, on the days that the stimulus checks came out, they would have like 4 days of back-to-back better than Black Fridays, which are generally the best day ever in retail. So like e-commerce has been insane. And the private equity is snatching up businesses left and right in e-commerce. One company, Thrasio, I think they do like 4 to 8 acquisitions a month, all, you know, multi-million plus acquisitions. And they're just focused in on people who have Amazon real estate. They're looking at, like, if you have a category killer in Amazon, they're interested in buying you. Like if you have the #1 spoon, they're looking to buy it because they want that space on Amazon. So that's first. And, you know, everyone has become more trained to buy online now. So that's just like accelerated the cycle. In addition to that, like, you know, for me personally, when we went into COVID, I noticed that Facebook was putting a lot more emphasis and focus on their live streams to keep people on air, right? Like to keep them on the platform. And so we started doing a live stream like twice a week. And then I would promote it, and promoting it was dirt cheap, especially during that time. You could get a view for 1/10 of 1 penny, you know, and so quickly, like we built up an audience of millions. And when we later on did promotions, that audience did extremely well for us. And that's like a thing that is continuing. That's a pattern that anyone can jump on. At any given moment, there's always something that the platforms are pushing, right? And you can leverage that and benefit from it by doing what it is that they're pushing at that moment, right? So like right now, for example, YouTube is pushing YouTube Shorts. And I've had clients that have gotten like 10 million views, 15 million views, like people who never got very many views at all. And that's extremely beneficial because retargeting on YouTube is some of the cheapest advertising you could ever do. So as long as your YouTube creator account is tied to your Google advertising account, then you can very cheaply retarget anyone that comes across any of your organic videos. And right now, YouTube is doing all the heavy work trying to find an audience. If you create a YouTube short, they're going to try and find people who it would be appropriate for. So YouTube's doing the work with their algorithm. You benefit because you're creating the content that they want to serve at that moment. And so, like, you know, I still work for Agora, and this morning, that's what we were talking about, that they needed to get more involved with these short videos to use in YouTube Shorts, use in Instagram Reels, use in TikTok. And that, because I had received some messages from some other friends of mine that TikTok advertising now is beginning to take off, right? And so there's been a tremendous amount of activity. I haven't really looked to take on that many new customers because all of my clients that I had were doing crazy business and wanted to really leverage everything that was working for them. But I do think that like leveraging what platforms want is always the best approach. You know, it's like the lowest hanging fruit always. And the other thing that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about, because what made me well known was the Internet Business Manifesto, where like I painted the picture of like the absurd amount of things that most entrepreneurs try and do. And you know, really kind of, I think, taught the market like what an opportunity seeker is, why you don't want to be one, and what are the implications if you are. And so like that philosophy is still my philosophy. I still believe that. But I've been talking to Jay a lot recently about this concept that is kind of been birthed out of a product that I already have that I've been serving. And it's the concept is that there is always, just like there's always something the platforms are pushing, there's always some new marketing tactic in one of the critical areas of online marketing that most people don't know about. And there's really like, I don't know any other comparison of any other environment where in the online environment, because it's so marketing centric and because like people are marketing 24/7, right? Like throughout the world, all the time online, marketing tactics and marketing strategies can very quickly become very commonplace and therefore no better, right? And what I've seen in the 20 years that I've been doing this, that there is things degrade very quickly over time. Marketing strategies and marketing tactics, not principles, but the actual strategies and tactics, they expire more quickly than ever before. And so there really is this first mover advantage to leveraging marketing tactics that are currently crushing it that the rest of the world doesn't know about, because you stand out as being different and being different in a superior way. So where I've been spending a lot of my time is like, how do you balance those two? Because we have a service called Steal Our Winners, where what we deliver to people every month is 8 to 10 to 12 strategies and tactics that are currently crushing it that the world does not know about. And so how do you balance the two? How do you make sure you're receptive and open to capitalize on these unique circumstances versus, being spread thin, right? Like, and so, when I wrote like the Internet Business Manifesto and those 6 other reports in 18 months, like that was when like a free report would get you the most amount of juice. And if you were to release a free report today on a blog, it would not go around the world and you would not get millions of dollars from it like I did back in 2006, right? Yeah. And when I invented the automated webinar, like the same thing happened. Like,
and you did that in 2009, right? Before there was.
Yeah, 2007, actually. I wrote a report on
2007. That's amazing. I mean, 2007, nobody knew. I mean, think where we're thrust now. If you would have done that in 2019, you would have been just another guy.
Exactly. And, so like I taught it to Mike Filsain, and that created Webinar Jam and EverWebinar. And I taught it to Russell Brunson because he had some tax problems at that time. And like, we all crushed it. But like the first course that came out like on using automated webinars was years later. Right. And the same with VSLs. Like John Benson invented the VSL, right? He invented it in 2005. He did it for a client, Mike Jury, in 2006 for 6-pack ads. And I saw that ad and I immediately knew it would work. And I brought it to Agora, and Agora used it, and it immediately increased the conversion rates worldwide by 300% or more. And so we quickly went from about $250 million to past $1 billion that year, right? So I got this $1 billion testimonial from Bill Barnard. But what's interesting is that 2007, nothing really happened. 2008, nothing really happened. 2009 was the first time John Benson taught it to other people, and he taught it at Boardroom to just about 20 top copywriters. It wasn't until 2010 that the first course on VSLs came out. Remember, he invented it in 2005, took it to Agora in 2006. In 2016, that was the beginning and the end as far as there was no longer any benefit. Like when we split tests, a regular sales letter versus a video sales letter, it was now equal. And that like shows you like, you know, in all of those cases, there was a point in time where you would get a multiplied benefit from leveraging a specific tactic that no one else was using at that moment. And then over time, it degrades because marketers beat the crap out of anything that works until it stops working, right? So I've been really focused on delivering that, finding those things. And, you know, there are these nuances that not knowing can cost you a tremendous amount. So I'll just share one last one that I didn't know. And I was doing a segment for this product of ours with Fernando Cruz, and Fernando is really one of the best marketers at all of Agora. And, you know, I've worked with Agora for 17 years, so I'm pretty confident in my ability to say that he's one of the best, if not the best, that Agora's ever had. And he helped grow Legacy from a little under 100 million to 400 million in about 2 years. And by the way, and Stansberry is being sold right now for $3 billion, which Legacy, the part that Fernando runs, is the #1 contributor of profit to. Anyway, he started the conversation with me and he's like, I have a list of 980,000 people on it. What do you think a good open rate would be? And I was like, yeah, 15%. He's like, we have a 48% open rate on that. What about a list of like 490,000? I'm like, well, now I have no idea what to guess. And he was like 54% open rate. And he's like, that's why we're able to get 250,000 people on a webinar, right? Like, because we're getting delivered and we're getting opened. And as he's telling me this, like in my office right here, I have 2 big monitors, one on my left, one on my right, and then I'm looking at you. The one on my left is my other computer. That's where I generally do all my work. And I do my video stuff on this one, right? So I was doing work before I was talking to Fernando, and I had left open my screen, which had my Infusionsoft, which is our CRM system. Like I had it opened and I was looking at someone who had canceled our product, right? And they had canceled our product like a month ago. And we send out daily emails, right? And this person had not opened an email in 30 days. Like I'm looking at their 30 emails that they hadn't opened. So that's just on that, right? And I'm talking to Fernando, and Fernando's telling me that every time you send an email, if it doesn't get opened, it's a ding against you, like for the ESPs, for the email service providers. Yes. It's one of the reasons why, like, you know, if I were to send you, BD, a email, I could use every spam word in the dictionary, right? And it would still get to you, because like my personal reputation, like my personal sender score is that, you know, I don't do any mass emails personally, and people open my emails. So they're going to let my email through, right? But if only 10% are opening your emails, then your emails are not that important. And if there's a spam word or there's something else, like it can easily get trapped, right? So having people, what Agora was doing and what Fernando was doing at Agora was very quickly throttling people down who are not opening their emails, and very quickly throttling people up who are. So, we would at Agora, let's say we send like 30 emails a week. So if someone in 5 days, if someone isn't opening, like they're already being taken down to many, many less. If they open an email today, they're going to get at least 2 emails tomorrow. And those people are going to get the emails before anyone else, so that you're resetting your reputation score, right? Like, so not like there's a huge difference between a 10% open rate and a 50% open rate, right? It's 5x the business that you do from email. Agora does all their business through email. All the back ends are sold primarily through email. Like front ends, where we get the customers, we advertise, but the back ends are all through email. So the $2 billion we do a year is all through email. And so, big difference between 10% and 50% on deliverability, right? Or, different tactics that right now are working at YouTube, like a peel and stick method, so that if you're doing YouTube advertising and you're using the algorithm, which you should, if you go in and manage the algorithm, where you look at all the places where it's being currently displayed and you take out the lowest third of performance, you will train the algorithm a lot faster, and you will cut your advertising costs on YouTube by about 25%. So it's like
Rich.
stuff like that, right? If you don't know, you're kind
Yeah,
of screwed.
so if we're in this on strategic profits, they can learn some of this
Yeah.
stuff, right? So we can,
Yeah.
and we'll get the link out to everybody after this, because obviously you could tell that Rich could just drop knowledge all day long. And we'll bring back to the fireside chat, we'll bring back some of the questions of things that maybe you should have done or shouldn't have done.
There's
once we
one
got that.
more thing, BD, that
Yes.
I'd love to add, because I think it will dovetail into Alan pretty well, if not what he's going to say now, but maybe what he says later. I wrote a report, back in 2007, called the Attention Age Doctrine 1 and 2. And that was all about how my belief that attention was quickly going to become the scarcest commodity online, and what were the implications for an entrepreneur, what are the implications for your prospects, and what are the implications for marketing and business. And that the writing was on the wall for me, and I could see that where attention was going to social media. And so I was talking about that. And I did a segment recently with this guy, Walter Birch, who's a player online, right? He's not a guru, but he's a player. And he had done a breakdown of what is really working in YouTube advertising versus what's not, right? And it ties very much into attention. And that's why I'm bringing it up. He was distinguishing between tease versus taste. That on a YouTube thumbnail, you click it, you're going to go see a video that you want to watch. An ad is a complete interruption, right? And ads that are working best give people a taste versus tease. So a tease would be my ad pops up and it's like, hi, I'm Rich Schefren. And in this video, I'm going to show you 3 easy ways to increase your conversion rates on any landing page, right? And blah, 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 right? That's a tease. A taste would be, of the 3 ways to improve the performance of your landing page, the first way is take any verbs that you have and make them plural, put an S behind it. When you do that, it takes the ownership of effort from the prospect to the thing, right? Because boost your business versus boosts your business, right? But that, whatever, that's that would be a taste, then go into a tease of what's coming. And when this was told to me about YouTube advertising, what it occurred to me, because I've studied attention for 15 years, is that what this really is saying is that I will not give you my attention anymore just for a promise. My attention is so scarce that unless you prove to me that what the next minute or 2 of this video is, that I'm actually going to miss out on something really valuable, the promise is just not enough. And I think that's really interesting. So people are becoming even more guarded about their attention and what you have to do to be worthwhile of getting it. And so I think that attention is obviously critical, in every part of marketing, but the fee that you have to pay to get someone's attention is increasingly going up.
That is huge. Thank you so much. And the tease versus taste is another amazing one. And thanks, Jonathan, for the marketers beat the crap out of everything that works. That was another famous one that dropped in there. So thank you, Rich. We're gonna talk to you at the fireside chat. We're gonna go to Dr. Allen now. So we're talking about better business, faster decisions. Alan, you've created and you've put a whole science behind decision making. And I call you the hell yes, hell no guy. We want people to make hell yes or hell no decisions, right? Because we don't like maybes. We want somebody to either hate us or love us. And I'm going to hand it over to you so you can walk it over. But thank you so much for coming out today and dropping knowledge on us. I will let Maman let you share your screen, and I will mute myself and let you take off.
So let me know if everybody can see my screen. It should show the science of decision making.
Yep, we've got you. Go for it.
Great. So I think before I start, just to follow on what Jay and Rich has shared, these are definitely unprecedented times. There's not just the COVID-19 crisis. There's a number of different crises that's taking place. And I like the definition of a crisis that says a crisis is any time when you have to make important decisions and when decisions matter most. Not just about what to do, but what not to do. And that was the point that Rich was making is, we have this scarce resource called attention There's obviously other scarce resources as well, like budget, etc. But these scarce resources force us to decide what to allocate that scarce resource to. And there's a couple of things that can happen in a crisis. We can underreact. You know, I call it sort of lovingly addicted to hopium, that hope that the old times would come back. And it probably is never going to come back, because it's not just COVID-19 that has taken place as a crisis. It's the impact of artificial intelligence. It's the impact of big data and robotics and cybersecurity and a much higher focus on privacy and mental health. All of these aspects are forcing business owners, entrepreneurs, managers, people in their private lives to make a decision about what to do. And the one is, you can underreact. You can hope that things will come back, and they probably will never come back. And if you are falling in that category, you're going to be hurt really, really badly by the changes that's taking place. The other extreme is you can overreact. And we see that already in supply chains. Companies that ran out of inventory, that were running very, sort of just-in-time kind of inventory systems, are overreacting and buying a lot of stock, which is sending a signal back to the suppliers that demand is greater than expected, which means that they're adding up capacity. But obviously, once all the inventory buffers are filled up, those orders will come down, and suddenly these manufacturers will be sitting with a lot of excess capacity and inventory, triggering this kind of vicious cycle where they then have to start discounting the stuff, creating artificial demand, etc. So there's always a penalty towards overreacting to situations. But then the last one that I'm particularly interested in is the third mistake that we make is we don't learn from our experience. We don't learn from this crisis. And before I go into my presentation, just a really important thing about a crisis that I'd like everybody to think about is, when there's a crisis, we often have to break the rules, our own rules, to get out of the crisis. So if you think about a manufacturer that suddenly don't have enough capacity to meet the demand. Previously, when a customer phoned in an order to say, I want to order 1,000 widgets, they would say, absolutely, when can we ship it to you? But when you don't have enough capacity, when you don't have enough of any scarce resource, including your limited attention or budget, you're not asked, how much do you really need? Do you really need 1,000? Because I don't have 1,000 to give you. I don't have the attention to give you now. What do you really need? And maybe you can agree with them that they actually just need 200 a week. And if you ship 200 a week over the next 5 weeks, that'll be fine for them. So it allows you to not overproduce, to not do things that are not needed. Now the question is, this change in rules of only supplying people what they really need right now within the time it takes us to replenish them is a fundamental change, or breaking the rules, which is previously just supply them whatever they want. But now the question is, what happens if the crisis is over? And this is where we make the biggest mistake, is we go back to the old rules. We keep on shipping them what they want, thinking that that's not our responsibility. If they order too much, if they require too much, and we just give them what they want, we get paid for, there's no damage to us. But these things happen in vicious cycles. So one of the things I would like you to think about is all the rules that you had to break to get out of the crisis. If you were using those rules every day, wouldn't it prevent a future crisis from happening? If the change in the rules that got you out of the crisis worked, wouldn't following those rules every day prevent a crisis from happening in the future, essentially preventing you from wasting scarce resources, doing stuff that's not needed or not needed now? So I'll leave it there just in terms of the big challenge. I've always been passionate about decision making. Since I was a young kid, we grew up without much resources. I got great advice from my granddad to say, if you want to become successful in whatever field you are interested in, go and study successful people. And what I very quickly realized is, when you study successful people, there's essentially 4 elements that has a big impact on the success. 2 of those elements are outside of your control, which is essentially good or bad luck, the level of good or bad luck that you have in life, and the genes that you got. The genes you can't change. Probably quite soon with CRISPR technology, we'll be able to change the genes. But for now, the reality is if you have good luck and you have good genes, you're probably much more likely to succeed than somebody with bad luck and bad genes. But there's two things that are under your control. And those are essentially related to the decisions that you are making on a daily basis and the amount of effort that you are willing to put in to succeed. It doesn't matter what you do, even if you're an influencer on YouTube and they're making millions, they are working hard every single day. So hard work and good decision making is at the core of the things that's under our control. And what I became passionate about is to say, how do these top successful people do it? What is it that they use to ensure that they don't make really bad decisions? And if they do make a good decision, that they can really capitalize on that. And that's, Vidi, where you introduced me to say the hell yes decisions are options that we are exercising, changes that we are making that has a big upside if it works and a small downside if it doesn't. Those are the hell yes decisions that we should absolutely go for. The hell no decisions are ones that has a small upside if it works and a big downside if it doesn't. Those are the ones where we're not only taking risk, but we're being reckless. It's kind of the difference between playing the lottery and playing Russian roulette. We often get confused by using only the probability of success or failure to judge whether something should be done or not. So playing the lottery, what is the probability of success? 1 in a million. You know, what's the probability of failure? Almost 1 million out of 1 million. Should I play the lottery? Well, it depends on the impact of success. Big upside if I succeed, small downside if I don't. Good decision to go for it, even though the probability is very, very small. Then you think about Russian roulette, right? What is the probability of success there, of surviving? It's basically 1 out of 6 is the risk of failing. 5 out of 6 is the probability of surviving, is the probability of a good outcome for me. But should I do it? Should I play Russian roulette? Of course not. Why? It's not because it has a high probability of success. It's the fact that the impact of success or failure, if I fail, I lose my head, which is quite an important part of my body. If I succeed, I stay alive. I was alive before I played. Small upside if it works, big downside if it doesn't. And that's something that what I want to do is just take you through a short journey of how I went about looking at decision-making and treating it as a science. Just briefly, my company is called Goldred Research Labs. I co-founded it in 2009 with Dr. Eli Goldred. He's the creator of Theory of Constraints and the author of one of the most published books of all time. It features in the top 150 books of all time. It's called The Goal.
Is Alan still okay?
I'm not hearing him.
I'm not hearing him either. He disappeared.
Or he's
So,
like
Alan?
taking a really pregnant pause because he's got a very
I thought he was very, very focused
no.
on that. This will be interesting.
Rich, and a bloodless coup take over.
Okay, next slide.
Tell you what.
Let's
Let's.
see.
Are you back, Alan?
Is he back?
Okay, so the beauty of being in Henderson, Nevada, and Los Angeles and Florida. So Rich, we're just talking a minute ago about some of the other things that you're seeing out there before you hand it over, and some of the things that people are overdoing right now, like maybe killing themselves, over marketing and thinking that it's the greatest thing. So let's move towards that discussion right now while we get Alan back. And talking to us.
Yeah,
about,
and one of the things that I would say is that like, so I taught a course on theory of constraints back in 2008. And actually, when it came time for me to learn theory of constraints so that I could teach it and help people, it was really Alan's stuff that I went through and studied and mastered. So I
And
actually
just for the people that don't know about it, just give us, I know I don't want to take away his thunder, but theory of constraints is just kind
theory of
of
constraints originally developed for manufacturing. It's kind of similar to like Lean or Six Sigma, but a different methodology. But it's a way to maximize the output of any system. And it's primarily for manufacturing. I took it and brought it into internet marketing and taught people how to use it. It's extremely powerful technology for business optimization. And it's interesting because like when so it's what theory of constraints helps you do is figure out like what is the single thing right now that actually is preventing your business from making a lot more, or any system, right? And because there's always one thing that is currently blocking the performance of a system, right? It's not 20 things, it's one thing. And there are many ways to get at it. And part of theory of constraints shows you like our tools that help you get at like what are those constraints, right? And so the difference between your potential and your actual results, the difference there is the constraint. So there's Alan, and he can obviously talk about
Alan's back.
I can.
I'm not sure what happened. Zoom just completely crashed, and I struggled to really get it restarted. So it's a technology issue. I'm not sure why that happened. I hope it doesn't happen again. But my apologies.
No, you're fine. You were on the second one. We were talking about.
If you can just give me the rights to share my screen again, I'll go back with
Yep,
the
I'll do
presentation.
that. That's me. Let me just change my view. Thank you very much to everybody for allowing us to take up your time for a second. But thanks for coming back in. We didn't know if you got, what's it, 120 degrees in Henderson right now?
Yeah, I hope not that much.
Perfect. So you can share your screen now.
Check.
And Rich just kind of went through a little bit of theory of constraint, but
Right.
wasn't trying to take it away from you, but you can
No,
obviously
sure.
probably
very
describe it to that level. So you were on the second slide, and we'll be sharing yours in a second, and I will step aside. I will go to mute. Thank you very much. Next time Jay's up, he's going to have to stand in for you and go through your presentation next. So go for it, Alan. Thank you.
Sure. So I was just saying, so this is essentially this presentation's about, understanding the science behind decision making. That's essentially what my lab does, and my personal interest level is really about just understanding one question: is why do good people make and often repeat bad decisions? In our research lab, we study this. We take the insights that we gain and we put it into our decision maker apps, which is one of the demos that I'll give later. But why is that? Why do good people make and often repeat bad decisions? Well, the first thing that you do when you study something scientifically is you say, how bad is the problem? And when you look at these newspaper data sources, you find out that 60% of all shortages and delays in supply chains are due to over and under reactions, not due to natural forecast error or Murphy. 65% of all surpluses is due to overbuying and overproduction, not due to forecast error. 70% of all data loss and hardware failures is due to human error, only 11% due to hackers. 80% of airplane crashes, 90% of car crashes are due to human error, not equipment or computer failure. And human error in medical diagnosis and treatment is now the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer. So it's a huge problem. Human error, when we make bad decisions, it is consequential. It can be overwhelming. There's a bit of good news as we make about 35,000 decisions every single day. The good news is most of those don't matter, but a few do. They matter a lot. And that's part of what I realized when you start studying something, this inspirational quote of Jean-Baptiste Perrin has inspired me in terms of my search. He said that the goal of all sciences is to substitute visible complexity for invisible simplicity. There's a basic belief in science that every complex system is governed by inherent but invisible simplicity. So if you think about E equal to mc squared, right? Energy is equal to the mass multiplied by the square of the speed of light. It's such a simple correlation, but it is incredibly powerful to explain a huge amount of visible complexity in our universe. And the question that I had when I started studying decision making is, you know, there's a tremendous amount of visible complexity in decision making. We make so many decisions. All of us have different weighting factors, have different ways of looking at it. Is there really inherent simplicity? And if so, where is it? And I want to share two parts of that inherent simplicity with you today that can explain why good people make and often repeat bad decisions. Is that we make and repeat bad decisions for very good reasons. If there's one takeaway I would like you to take away from today, just remember this. Good people, you and me, make and often repeat bad decisions for very good reasons. We always have a good reason. Often that reason is sitting in the subconscious mind, but we always have a good reason. If you want to understand why you often procrastinate, why you sometimes overreact, you need a way to find out what these good reasons are. And if it turns out that it's a limiting assumption or belief, how to overcome them. And that's the search that I was on, is can I develop a process, a systematic process, step by step, that will allow anybody to do this? And I'll share with you some of the incredible results that we've had around the world of testing this process. So I'll start off with the first part of the inherent simplicity, which is what is really limiting us from making better, faster decisions. And Rich hinted at this, is that our bottleneck in decision making is not time, it's not wisdom, it's not even courage. All of those things we have more than what we need. What we don't have enough of and will never have enough of is our limited attention. Why? Because the number of things that demand our attention at any point in time, both in our personal lives and at work, will always be more than our available attention. So we have a shortage, a supply shortage in available attention. What theory of constraints teaches us is to say, when you have a constraint, if the constraint is attention or cash or market demand or whatever it is, the first step is, once you've identified the constraint, is to decide how to better exploit it and not waste the scarce resource. So how do we waste our scarcest resource? Is we do the wrong things, the many things that don't matter or are not going to help us achieve the goal, but keeps us busy. We end up not doing the right things, those few high leverage points, those hell yeses. We spread ourselves so thin that we never get to them. We do the right things in the wrong way. We multitask. And lastly, we end up repeating mistakes, number 1, 2, or 3. But why is that? Well, we make bad decisions for two main reasons. The first is that some decisions are simply unavoidable. Some bad decisions are simply unavoidable. So if you are asked to forecast the demand for a specific item at a specific place and time, you're gonna get it wrong. You'll be over or under. That is unavoidable. But the good news is many of the mistakes that we make are avoidable mistakes. And the cause behind it, you can remember, as the 3 I's. And the sequence here is really important. So the first reason why we could make an avoidable mistake is we were ignorant. We didn't know. Others knew what to do, what the problem was, how big the problem was, what the solution was, but we didn't know. So whenever we're designing a process to improve our decision-making, the first thing that process should contain is some step or steps to check, could it be that we are ignorant of the problem, the consequences of the problem, the causes, the solutions? But what if it's not ignorance? What then? Inertia is a name for we knew, but we didn't act. We had information about COVID-19 for decades along, but almost nobody acted. We were warned, nobody acted. We've known about AI and big data and all of these things coming on. Very few people have acted. Why is that? What is the inertia that's blocking them from acting? So again, the process of making good decisions should acknowledge this and have some way of helping us understand what is behind our inertia. Whether the inertia is, why is it that medical professionals like doctors and nurses don't wash their hands? Why is that? Is it that they don't know how bad it is if they don't wash their hands and apply common? No, it's not. Why is it that doctors and nurses have a much higher percentage of people than the average population that smoke? Clearly, they know how bad smoking is for them, and yet they smoke. So what's behind that inertia to change the behavior? And then the next one is ineptitude, is we acted, so we knew we acted, but somehow we compromised, and that caused us to overreact. So that's a really important classification. I realize is that whatever process we design need to acknowledge that there are some mistakes that are simply going to be unavoidable, that we can't do anything about. We need to find a way of recognizing that and not waste any time trying to do root cause analysis on those. But there's a big chunk of problems that are avoidable. We need to look at what's causing it. Is it ignorance, inertia, or ineptitude? Our process has to be designed to give us answers for all three of those, to check all of them off. So what are the full consequences and causes of bad decisions? So when we make a bad decision, when we delay or resist making a good change, or we overreact and make a bad change, it obviously has consequences. It causes disharmony and stress for the people involved. We blame ourselves, we blame others, they blame us, and that causes stress and conflict and disharmony. But it also has an impact on our organizations. It limits the potential when people make bad decisions. And soon it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Soon we don't believe that we can dramatically reduce shortages or surpluses, or reduce the delays on projects, or any other goal that we're trying to achieve, because we don't realize to what extent avoidable decision mistakes are causing that. So what is behind bad decisions? And we ask kids when we do these programs for young kids is, what do you think? Why do we make bad decisions? And the one conclusion is, it's just a bad purpose, bad person. Bad people make bad decisions. If that was true, it would be very easy to solve the problem, get rid of these bad people, right? But there's another one. It's not a bad person, it's just an ignorant person. They lack the knowledge, and obviously it's a very simple, if that's the case, if a person is smoking because they're ignorant, that they didn't know how bad it is for them or how good their life will be without it, it's a very easy way to test it, is give them the knowledge and see if they change their behavior. The third reason is bad decisions are made by good people. Good people have good reasons for making bad decisions. And those good reasons are the bad assumptions or limiting beliefs that we have. And that sort of set me out on this path of saying, okay, so we know that our scarcest resource is attention. We don't want to waste it by making bad decisions. We choose to believe that most bad decisions are not made by bad people or by ignorant people. It's made by good people that have good reasons. We want to find a way of uncovering what these good reasons are. And once we uncover them, hopefully it will transfer it from the subconscious to this conscious mind. And if it's in the conscious mind, we can check and challenge it. And I set about studying all the giants in decision making out there, all the way from Benjamin Franklin that invented the pro-con list method in 1770, all the way to Dr. Ellie Goldrat, one of my mentors, that have developed a whole range of decision support methods like the evaporating cloud and change matrix, etc. And what I tried to do is to look at what are the big insights that they gained that gave benefits to their methods, but what were the limitations of these methods? And
Uh-oh.
I don't know what's happening in Henderson, Nevada, but we'll get Alan back in a second. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that we get a lot of that stuff happening in the background, because you'll get to see it straight from the horse's mouth. So why don't we move a little bit right now into the fireside chat, and we'll get, when Alan's back, then we'll go through that. we definitely have the rest of this and we'll be able to share it with you. And you'll also be able to, in the LinkedIn group, ask Alan quite a few different questions. So we've had quite a few questions come in. We've had about 15 different questions come in. So make sure you're putting in the chat box and you can chat directly to questions and then we'll have those. So right now, and the question came in, either of you, Jay or Rich, can kind of bring it to the fore, is what basic decisions right now do you see that business owners are making wrong most often?
You want me to go first, Jay?
Yeah, you
Sure, go first.
Go, Rich.
You have the right shirt.
Yeah. So, this is more to entrepreneurs than like, CEOs specifically. But I'd say the biggest mistake that I see entrepreneurs make, and it's not just recent, and it's pretty much all the time, is that when they're figuring out their business, when they're designing their business, how it's going to operate, et cetera, they design it for some mythical entrepreneur as opposed to who they really are. And that, if you're a procrastinator or a perfectionist or whatever your challenges are, well, you have to figure out a way that like your business thrives the way you currently are. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't really think about it that way. Like there's a real reason that like I always wrote reports, sold coaching programs before I created them, and then created them live with people. And then that's how I created all my programs, because I'm incapable of creating a course like in a room without like massive pressure. And so there's this great book that came out, I think over 10 years ago. It was called Change or Die. And it was written by some famous cardiologist or something. And he was talking about how when most people are given the choice, you either have to change or you are going to die, 90% don't change, they die. And so if personal change is that hard, designing a business for some other person, some mythical person, your best self, when it's not your real self, is a recipe for disaster. So I'll give you one more example out of it and then I'll pass it back to these guys. But I'm not money motivated, never really have been. But obviously to have a successful business, someone's got to be, and the business needs to be. So I've always had an aggressive profit sharing so that everyone on my team was focused on us making money, because I knew that as an entrepreneur, it's a weakness of mine that money is not as motivating as it should be, because I want the things that money buys. So there's certainly, I'm not repulsed by it by any stretch, but the idea of knowing what you're, everyone talks about designing a business so you can leverage your strengths. Very few people talk about designing a business so your weaknesses are irrelevant. And I would just say that any entrepreneur who feels like they're disappointing their business, right, is probably more a sign that they design their business for not the entrepreneur who they currently really are, but some mythical better version of themselves that they're not. And as long as there's that difference, the business will never thrive as it could.
That's awesome.
Sorry, BD, Zoom again crashed. I'm not sure what's the problem. I'm hoping that it won't crash again. So if I can get straight into it. So
you go straight back into it. We're going to go into the decision-making app now. So we'll hand it back over to you, Norman.
Sure. Where I was at is to say, can you come up with a process that can keep all the benefits of all the previous methods while addressing their limitations? And I stumbled upon this while I was in a workshop with Dr. Ellie Goldratt, is to say, if you imagine this character sitting here, he's got this dark cloud hanging over his head. He has to decide whether to climb this mountain. And the climbing the mountain represents some kind of change we have to make in our life, that we have an option whether to climb the mountain or not. And that immediately puts me in a conflict, because this change that I'm planning to make has both a pro and a con. This is essentially the pro-con list that Benjamin Franklin invented. The positive of climbing the mountain, the unique positive, is the pot of gold. If I don't climb the mountain, I can't get the pot of gold. But there's also risks associated with this, all the effort of climbing and all the risk of falling down, which is represented by the crutches. That's the cons of climbing. And that's where Benjamin Franklin ended it, is to say, if you want to understand why somebody is stuck or might be overreacting, you can look at the pros and cons. But then what do? How do you cancel them out? Because not everything can be expressed in a common utility like money. And if you can't express it in a common utility, how do I make a decision? How do I compare the inconvenience of moving my family and kids to a new area and a new school with the increased level of satisfaction I'll get by getting a new job? What Dr. Eli Goldred did was he reminded us that there's another dimension that we have to consider when we make a decision, which is there's also pros and cons of not changing. And in the storyline, the mermaid or this comfort chair is representing the comforts we have with our current situation. So if we climb the mountain, we're going to leave the mermaid behind. We can't take her with us. She represents the positives of the status quo, the positives of the status quo. This positive of, for example, why I smoke is that I think it helps me with coping with stress. So if I'm trying to understand why somebody hasn't quit smoking yet, or the example that Rich did, this change or die, why haven't they changed their lifestyle if they've got a very high risk of dying after heart bypass, is it might be because they're ignorant of the pot of gold. It might even be that they're ignorant of this alligator in the lake, that even if there wasn't a pot of gold, will eat them if they don't get up that mountain, if they don't change. But most often it's not just that. There's some other reasons. And what I realize is that this diagram, if we ask the right questions, the answers to our questions are hidden in plain sight. So if I get all the pros, that will give me a goal that I want to achieve. If I get any of the cons, it will give me a threat. And this is the method I developed called the pro-con cloud method. If we try to understand why somebody is procrastinating or resisting making a good change, it can be because of ignorance. So we always have to check that. Could it be that they are underestimating the unique positive of the change, the pot of gold, or underestimating the size of that alligator? That could be, but most often it's not. Most often the real reason why we procrastinate, why we resist good changes, is we have an exaggerated fear of loss, of losing the mermaid, and an exaggerated fear of the effort or risk of gaining the crutches. So literally, those fears are hidden in plain sight if we just ask the right questions. The second question is, why do we sometimes overreact and make bad changes? Why do we allow ourselves to lose our temper or to panic when a competitor comes in and lower their prices, and suddenly we copy them and we kill the perception of value for our product or service in the market? Why is it? Again, it could be because of ignorance. We are underestimating the mermaid or underestimating the crutches, but most often it's because of an exaggerated frustration with the alligator or an exaggerated expectation of the pot of gold. And I realized when I stumbled on this is the inherent simplicity, is that every dark cloud has a silver lining. If we say the dark cloud is the problem that we're facing, what is the conflict it puts us into? And we simply answer the questions of the unique pros and cons of the change versus don't change as the options we have. We can actually read off this diagram the reasons why we might overreact, the reasons why we might underreact. And then we can develop new options, better options, options that have a bigger upside if it works and a smaller downside if it doesn't. So let me give you a quick example. This is a company, very large, Fortune 500 company, earnings per share 10% below market expectation. We want to check that this problem is really important to them. The CEO says, if I don't act, there will be massive, massive hurt to my reputation. So there's major pressure for me to reduce cost immediately. Why is it bad for the company if this problem of the low earnings per share is? There's a risk of losing market share and investor confidence. So what's the conflict that I'm facing? The CEO on the one side feel pressure to announce layoffs of 10%. At the same time, they feel pressure not to announce the layoffs. There are two reasons for making the change. They believe that the layoffs will recover their profitability. And if they don't do it, which is the alligator part, is they believe that the share price will continue to fall. But there's also two reasons not to do it, which is the mermaid and the crutches. The mermaid, what are they scared to lose? Is that the exco and the employees can continue to focus on revenue growth if they didn't make the layoffs. You can imagine what will happen if the layoffs are announced. The next 6 months, the sole job of all the managers is going to decide who to lay off in a fair way. There's going to be no bandwidth, no attention left to focus on growth. But I can repeat the same diagram if I'm trying to understand the left-hand side, which is what action or non-action do I believe caused this problem in the first place? And the CEO told me he believes that what caused the earnings per share to be below expectations was that his leadership team submitted too high sales forecast. So I said, okay, what did you want them to do? What's a change you wanted them to make? Is to be more conservative. And again, each of those have got unique pros and cons, and we can read directly off this diagram. What were the reason why the CEO overreacted? And what was the reason why the leadership team underreacted and didn't change? So it's a very elegant way of discovering limiting assumptions or belief just by answering questions. Here's one that we did, and we've tested it as not just in private sector and public sector, but even at schools. So we asked the kids, what's your number one big problem or dark cloud? I'm being bullied at school. Why is it bad for you? I now hate it. Going to school, and why is it bad for the people that you care about? My friends are also now being bullied just because they know me. Okay, what's a conflict you face? Stand up for myself, fight back, or at least tell somebody versus just take it, don't do it. And again, each of these have got unique.
Oh no.
So what we're going to do is we're going to move to the fireside now. When Alan comes back, what we're going to do is we're going to get Alan to come on another time. So probably sometime in September to run everybody through the app. So anybody that wants to, we'll have a separate app event. So, but you can see right here that everything is doing amazing things, and it helps. And we use it all the time for our big decisions and our medium decisions. But it's a great thing, which is why we wanted to have this all shown to you. So could we take the Alan's down, and then we'll go to the fireside chat. So Jay, Alan's coming back, but I'll tell him right now so that we can get this. Don't want to upset him.
Oh, poor guy. That's my fear, that it always usually happens.
It is. It's the technology thing. So Jay, let's go back to the original one, that question that we had previously, which is, what are entrepreneurs or business owners doing right now that they repeat most often, making bad decisions?
Well, I mean, what I find, I'm going to give you a macro because it has come up. I do a lot of stuff that's Q&A based with clients, and when I speak, and my answer about something is almost always, if the assumption is wrong, everything that flows from that incorrect assumption is wrong. And I think most entrepreneurs make erroneous assumptions.
And what would somebody make that's, because they assume that they've the right client.
Oh, they assume, their reality needs to be checked. They assume what they're communicating to the market is a value the market wants. Rich and I did 6 hours one time on value creation, didn't we, Rich?
Yep.
I think we did. They assume that their proposition is the right proposition. They assume their risk reversal is the right risk reversal. They assume that the way they're targeting the audience is the most viable and cost effective. They assume that their marketing is the best marketing to do. They assume that the algorithm optimization is the best where it isn't. I mean, all the algorithm does is give you the best source of a macro lead or a macro buyer. It doesn't tell you which buyers are the most profitable, buy the longest, buy the quickest. It doesn't do anything to help you.
So how should we be, Rich and Jay, either way, is how should we be measuring these? How what's a measuring
you have
point?
to be, I think BD, you have to be disciplined to look at correlations, implications, anomalies, quantification, associative connections, realizations of the dynamics that are occurring, and what we do, if I were working with one of your viewers, they were a client, I would break my activities into 2 categories. The first is maximizing before I would multiply. I'd look at everything that was, I look at revenue system, nothing else. So I would look at what's driving the revenue, and then I'd break it into as many granular nuclear parts, and I would question whether that was the highest and best performing alternative they could be using. Normally, unless they're omnipotent, prescient, damn lucky, it's not. And they wouldn't. And I think the first is they have to expand their referential base. Most people, I mean, this is hilarious. And Rich and I have had this discussion. I believe there's a fallacy even in the concept of best practices, because best practices are historically the best incremental practices that a given industry or a related series of industries have discovered. It's not at all necessarily the highest, best, safest, fastest, most sustainable performing practice that other industries have discovered. It's just the best one that somebody in a industry has discovered. And when you only deal with industry specific best practices, besides only giving you incremental improvement, Rich talks about this all the time. If you're fortunate enough to get it in the very early stages, then you get a disruptive advantage for a period of time. If you get it later in the process, then it's merely it's just a standard operating procedure everybody has to do, and you got to find another one. So there's a lot of assumptions people make that are totally erroneous. Or I mean,
Yeah.
Rich and I have been guilty. We made an assumption
You've
about
done that.
Let's talk about that. Let's see. So what was it? What was that bad
John,
assumption?
It's
'Cause-
my interpretation, Rich might have a different reality. We made a double assumption. I got excited about a concept that I persuaded Rich to get excited about. We spent a year and over $1 million on it. We diverted a lot of time. Our assumption was two things. Number one, the market wanted it. And number two, there were a bunch of partners who would support our promotion. Both of those assumptions didn't play out, Rich.
No, but we became better friends. So there was
It's true.
That's
the-
worth $1 million. That's
and-
worth $1 million.
We got,
you know, we have
and
good
we got
stories.
humility by losing all that money in opportunity costs.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you,
There-
that's the thing. So what did you, because a lot of people go into and they make a website, they make a product, they do this. How do you run away or walk away and decide that something is a bad decision? You know,
Well,
I-
before we get there, BD, I just real quick, there are, so, you know, you can never avoid making assumptions in business. You have to make assumptions. The question is whether you validate or invalidate them or just assume they're true. And, you know, you're always going to make certain assumptions and some will turn out correct and incorrect, but there are certain ones that are incredibly vital to the performance of the business, like that are really critical to the entire business model. And I learned this from Steve Blank, and, you know, he was really the progenitor of like lean canvases and stuff like that. And so there's something called a lean canvas where you document the 9 critical assumptions that you're making about the business. Because like from his perspective, which I will now just like say as my own, but it's really his, a startup is just an experiment. The goal of a startup is not to make money. It's to validate or invalidate the assumptions that that business model is based on. Only after you validate it do you want to scale, because why invest a lot of money in something until you know that the problem you're solving is the problem that your customers want and will spend money to solve, that the channels that you think you're going to reach your customers on, you actually can reach your customers on, that the price you're charging is a price that they'll easily buy, that the advantage that you have or perceive yourself to have in the marketplace, your customers agree, the metrics that you think you're going to hit, right? The solution you provide, your value proposition, the cost structure and the revenue streams. These are all key critical assumptions that really drive the entire business model. And it's my belief that the reason why so many entrepreneurs get stuck in the middle of a business that cannot grow, but they are too reliant on the income to close, so they just get stuck in this no man's land, is that there are some critical assumptions in the business model that are incorrect. And so they're now stuck in a business that never got to the top of the mountain because like it's not capable of getting to the top of the mountain. And so, yeah, there's assumptions we make every day. And then there are these like tenant assumptions that most people never take the time to validate and pay a price for it day in and day out every day in their business.
And Rich, let me
Yeah.
give you a couple of other things. So when I used to do seminars years ago, it was always hilarious. Someone would say, well, I need to know how I can take my $1 million business to 10 million. And I always say, well, why? And they'd say, well, what do you mean? I'd say, well, what's the goal of the 10 million? And they'd say, well, my business makes 100,000 on $1 million. And if I want to make $1 million, I need 10. And I'd say, yeah. But if your assumption is that's the only way to do it, and this really goes to what Alan teaches, Rich, and that's true. But if your assumption is I can get twice the profit, and from a client, or I can get, twice or thrice the frequency, then it changes the whole timeline, and you only need 6 million or 5 million to get the same goal. Why do you want the goal? And we had a great story, which I talk about all the time. We had a motorcycle manufacturer in China that wanted to borrow money and the bank wouldn't lend him, so he could go overseas to other parts of Asia and manufacture and sell motorcycles. And I said, well, what's the goal? If he had the money, he goes, well, I'd go and I'd open a factory, I'd open offices in every country, I'd hire salespeople, set up dealerships. And I said, well, you don't need the money. All you need is a partner that's already got that, who you can put your product through. And we did that. And he made $10 million the first year with no investment by finding a lawnmower manufacturer that was the biggest in all of Asia and partnering with them. They had offices, salespeople, but a lot of people also, I think that, as ADD moment, that there are ways to pre or quickly validate or invalidate a lot of assumptions. I would probably call it a variance of due diligence. And I don't think most people do that. They go verily along. And the worst thing, because we have a lot of different methodologies, one of the things we came up with years ago was the sticking points. But a company or an entrepreneur, lifestyle influencer, you can be successfully stuck earning a lot of money and even growing at above market levels and not know that it's a fraction of what the opportunity, the effort, the capital, the market access, the intellectual capital could produce. So, I mean, I'm very fixated on challenging assumptions as quickly as you can, because I've been a hypocrite, I mean, and Rich may or may not. I would not allow a client to go continuously without validating, questioning, examining the viability and the truth of their assumption. But I've done many times just gone sort of blindly,
Yep.
forward.
And we're gonna bring Alan into the fireside chat. Alan, we're going to put in the LinkedIn group, and we're also
Great.
going to have another event where Alan could actually walk through the thing with people individually, or not individually, but in a group, where we can actually use the Harmony app right now. Because we just, with the challenges right now, we just want to make sure this. But there is one word that Jay was trying to bring in that we didn't want to take away from you, is that constraint theory. What's the one word? Because Jay was going from the motorcycles to lawnmowers and doing this. There's one word that you're constrained, and then I'll hand it over to you for what people need to say to themselves.
Yeah, I think it's again, just apologies. It's unbelievable how Zoom is crashing. It's never happened before, and it seems to get worse. It's somehow using up too much memory. But I think the point for my presentation was that there's inherent simplicity, but invisible simplicity within this big field of decision making. Two parts to it. The ultimate constraint to us making better, faster decisions is our limited attention. And how we allocate that limited attention, focusing on a few things that matter a lot, getting those right, and letting go of the others are critically important. But the second part is there's a simple way of discovering what these good reasons are we give ourselves and others give them to constantly make bad decisions, right? Is to ask those right questions. And this Procon Cloud method and the app that we've developed helps us to uncover what those good reasons are that people make, whether it's a CEO that's overreacting and causing layoffs, or somebody being bullied at school or at work that's not reacting to that. So I think the idea here in terms of decision making going forward is that there's known human flaws that we have that can be enhanced by technology. And apps like the one that we've developed help people make better, faster decisions when it really, really matters. As I started off with the presentation, the damage that we're causing with bad decisions are profound, not just to organizations, but also in our personal lives. When we overreact, when we underreact, it can cause disharmony and stress. We lose motivation, we lose productivity, but also we lose the ability to make the kind of impact that we want to make in the world.
And where I was getting to, and this was the reason we're all together, is that one thing that Jay was saying was the word you taught me, which we all know, is unless. We could do this thing, we could become multiple, we could do this, we can go from algebraic to multiplication. What would stop me from doing that? I could do that unless or if, it's that thing.
The method that we've developed, essentially, step one is about making sure that you're dealing with an important problem, right? Step two is making sure that you're understanding the conflict from all sides, looking at the pros and cons of changing and the pros and cons of not changing, and challenging those. But the third step is to say it's impossible to resolve this conflict with a better win-win, with more pros and less cons, unless, well, what is that unless? Unless I can find a way of making the change a viable option by adding something that will allow me to keep the mermaid and not live with the crutches. Or it's impossible unless I can find a way of making my status quo better, right? Adding something so I don't have to give up the pot of gold or get rid of the crutches, or deciding when and when not to change, and maybe another option. So that's what the method does, is it provides us with a systematic way of saying something is impossible to do unless, what are those unless conditions? And when we say a decision is impossible, it's not that we can't make the decision. It's the fact that every decision we have, both have unique pros and unique cons. And we are never taught the skills and provided with the tools to make decisions in those environments. The decisions that, yes, might still have a downside, but the downside might be small. So an option that we can develop that would have a big upside if it works and a small downside if it doesn't.
That's really good. And so I think and I thought Jay kind of alluded to that when he got to the motorcycles and lawnmowers. So you've seen a lot of other things changing out there in this world. And there's some things that if you were sitting down and, like Jay says, you ask a lot of questions when you sit down. So when you and Rich were talking kind of your first time, what were some of the questions that you open with, Jay? Because this is something that we should be doing to our clients. So what are some of the questions that you open with to make sure that people are evaluating and making right decisions?
Well, I always ask everybody, so tell me, what are you doing? Who are you doing it for? What is it designed to do? What's it designed to do for them? I didn't do anything different. I don't know why I got echo.
No, you're fine. It was somebody else.
And then I want to understand why. What are you doing? Why? How are you doing it? Why? What are you trying to accomplish? Why? What's your revenue model? Why? I want to start by understanding what they think they're doing and why they think they're doing it. And then I want to know, how is it doing? I just go through a sequence. I mean, I want to understand what's the game you think you're playing, and what's the basis or the rules you think you're playing by, and what's win mean? And do you think you're winning, or and if so, why, and at what level? And then I want to question all those assumptions.
And Rich, so you're bringing you back into it, is when you're talking to clients, because now we're going online, we're doing some other things, and people are making assumptions again. You work a lot with Jay, so are you using the same methodology? And should we be doing this to our clients, especially if we're selling B2B?
It just really depends. I would say yes, but it really depends on where the business is and where the entrepreneur is. I work with a lot of different companies, and I'd say that, like, while Jay and I overlap, I also spend more time with smaller entrepreneurs, and I still enjoy that. And for them, they make a lot of assumptions, right? Because, what your assumptions are based on your best guess is your best knowledge based on your experience. And, if you don't have the same level of experience, then obviously their assumptions are not going to be as accurate. And that's, kind of what they pay us for, right? Like, we know which assumptions to challenge, right? Like, that I'm looking at that number, and there's no way that your cart value is going to be worth that much, or that you're going to be able to acquire customers at that cheap of a price, or that percentage of people are going to take the upsell. Like, you know, just based on our experience, we can rattle off like what our expected averages of all these things. And so, yeah, I mean, with experience comes the ability to notice what is actually true and what's not true, and which assumptions are most critical. And then, you know, while Alan didn't get a chance probably to talk about this, like, you know, in a constraint can just be an assumption. Like, it doesn't have to be physical. It could just be a thought that has bought into, like, that people have bought into, that now acts as a total, like, depressing the profits of the entire business because an idea was believed, right? And so, you know, yeah, there's tons of those types of assumptions, like, you know, don't email people too frequently, or, you know, I need to give my buyers a rest. Like, what is that? People like buying, right? Like, so assumptions like that, can, you know, they're paradigm constraints for the most part.
So those paradigms, Alan. So some of the paradigms, and you do lots of studies. What are some of the most frequently asked questions when people start doing those things that you guys haven't given them, but they ask themselves when they go through the app?
Yeah, I think wow, I'm getting a horrible echo here.
Mute myself if it's.
I'll mute
Tell
myself
me,
too.
I'll do it too.
Is that better? No.
No, having audio challenges.
Wow.
It is not Alan's day.
It's not Alan's day. It's okay. We'll get there. We'll have some fun. So, and all this came about for that. So Jay, let's go with the kind of that same thing. I'm not trying to take away from you, Alan. We'll get things sorted out. But the frequently asked questions, the things that these assumptions that people are coming in with that they don't ask themselves. You keep asking them why. What are some things that these people are just going, okay, and how are you helping them overcome it?
Well, I mean, I can't remember. I don't know if I said this to you or not, because I always talk about this and my brain doesn't recall. I try to get people immediately, we talked about correlations and implications, to move from a two-dimensional to a three-dimensional thinker. I try to get them right away to stop looking at revenue less expense static is profit, and look at the third dimension, which is the residual yield they get out of it. Because if they don't look at what they're getting out of something, I mean, their whole model could be in error. They may
just,
be.
and Jay, just to put it in plain English, because some people are just salespeople. Residual revenue or residual. How do you measure that, or what does that look like?
Well, I mean, you start in saying, okay, you telling me that your assumption is that you can't run ads unless they make you double its cost. Let's take that as a hypothesis. And I say, why? And your answer might be, well, because I got to pay my overhead. And I'll say, but tell me right now, with no other changes, how much are each buyer coming in from different media or different offers or different products worth to you after that first sale? And most people don't have a clue. Would you agree, Rich?
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, let's look at it, because it might change everything. So we might find that a certain category or a certain type of product buyer or a certain media or a certain ad doesn't make a lot coming in, but that buyer buys 10 times and is worth, $5,000 more than the person that came in and they doubled their money on. And then they'll say, well, but I can't afford to do it. And I'll say, well, if you can't, you can go to any investor and show them that every time you spend $1, you accrue, $100, and that if they fund it, you'll give them double or triple market interest, and they would fund that as long as you prove it. But things like that, BD.
Those are amazing. So Alan, coming back to you, and I left it with you, and I wasn't trying to cut you off, obviously, but
Sure.
I think we've solved it. So you had double login. So I think we're good. So the frequently asked questions that are coming through the app or to you guys in your team.
Yeah, I think because I'm a expert in theory of constraints, I often get this question about where's our constraint, right? And I think that it's important to remove some of the confusion. You create an organization, that organization has a goal to achieve, whether it's to make money or to process as many people through the school system, there's a goal. That goal determines not just what resources are needed, but the load on those individual resources. A constraint is a resource that doesn't have enough capacity to meet the demand that's placed on it. That's kind of the definition I personally use and that Ellie Goldratt used, is that a constraint is anything that doesn't have enough capacity to meet the demand that's placed on it. So you could have one constraint, but you could also have multiple constraints. The way to say is, first of all, before you go and add capacity, right, exploit better what you've got. I think that's one thing that all three of us have in common, is this absolute passion to say you are completely neglecting using what you have much better. You're immediately jumping to elevate the constraint. If it's in the market, you're thinking about adding more products or going into new markets. And you ask the person, well, how much market share do you have? Like 3%. So why on earth would you want to go into another market? You know, there's 97% of the people are not buying from you. What the hell gives you the confidence that somehow you can convince other people in a new market that you don't understand to buy from you? So I think that's one of the first assumptions that we want to challenge, is that if we are not meeting our goal, it's because we don't have enough resources. You know, Tony Robbins talks about that all the time. It's not about the lack of resources. It's about the lack of resourcefulness. And resourcefulness is to think about how I can get more out of what I've already got. Now, all the other things.
So when we're looking at this, one of these things came in, and it'll kind of go along that same line. And I'm going to dumb it down because I'm a slow reader. Is how in that process then does the emotion come into it? So people make poor decisions, because you said good people make bad decisions because they're driven or
right.
Like we've talked about here, assumptions. How do we take emotion out of that?
Right. So one of the first lessons I've learned, and this is a simple story that you had asked us to think about, one of the biggest decision mistakes I had made personally, right? We had this perfect setup with one of in fact, they were the most valuable company on the planet at that point in time. It was the early 2000s. So people that know the market will know which high-tech company I'm talking about. We had a perfect setup. I'd spent 2 years getting everything in place. We were going to sign a contract with them that had a $5 million retainer and an upside of 10x that. It's a type of thing that you retire and you leave a legacy behind, right? We had a perfect setup all the way to the end meeting, where finally we had everybody in the room together and they would have to decide whether to go forward or not. And I was under the assumption that the bigger the benefit is that we can show, the more likely it will be that they will approve our proposal. And it was ultimately rejected. And it took many, many years for me to understand what the hell happened. But it's almost like you're starting from scratch. And I remember speaking to my mentor about it. And he gave me a hint about the direction to think. He said, when you are making a decision, logic doesn't trump emotions, right? We always use our emotions to decide. And we use the emotions to predict how we will feel after we have decided. Right?
Yes.
And it's very interesting. He said to me that there's only one thing that trumps strong emotion. So if you have an exaggerated fear of loss, of losing that mermaid, the thing that's uniquely positive with your status quo, or you have an exaggerated fear of the crutches, all the effort or risk of climbing, right? That's a really strong emotion. What is an even stronger emotion is the only thing that can trump a strong emotion is an even stronger emotion. And there's two types. The one is, you are scared of this happening. Let me give you something to be even more scared of, right? That we use with our kids all the time, right? You're scared of jumping off the little high, plank, or you're scared of swimming. Let me tell you what's going to happen if you don't, right? We do that all the time with ourselves, with our employees. We come up with some massive penalty if we don't have the courage to act. That's one strong emotion. But there's a very interesting other strong emotion, which is the emotion that we feel when we're part of a team that have set an incredibly ambitious goal and have created a plan and have listened to all the yes buts, but have used those to create a yes and plan. One of the steps in my method, right, is to take the yes buts and convert it into yes ands, and actually succeeding in that. And my lesson from that experience with this high-tech company was the reason why they rejected the proposal was we had completely neglected how we sometimes, as advisors, as mentors, as coaches, make other people feel when we walk into their environment and we show them that they've missed out, not on an improvement opportunity that could be 1% or 2% or 5% better, but 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times better. We completely ignore that emotional side. And since learning that lesson, and I use the pro-con cloud method now as a way of understanding those emotions, right? If I want this person to buy my product or service, could it be that they're underestimating the pot of gold or the alligator? Those are the reasons for them to buy, right? So I concentrate on the pain of not having my product and the pleasure of having it, right? But most of the time, like I said in my presentations, it's not ignorance. What is really happening is either inertia or aptitude. They're scared to lose something that they associate with their current status quo. And what I realized that what these people would lose is their status in the organization as an expert in the field. Here's these outsiders, and within a few months, they discovered this huge potential that we've missed all
fear
the
of being
time.
irrelevant, kind of moving
Exactly.
on, the world's moving
So
on.
since I've made that realization, I take extraordinary actions to make sure that the people I work with understand that I understand how easy it is to make bad decisions, how easy it is to miss huge opportunities. And that, like any skill, that takes lots of practice, like Jay and Rich, we've been doing this for decades, is being able to find those few high leverage points very quickly. It's a skill. It's very easy to miss them.
And I think that moves us into another question that came off of the question and answer. And I'll put this over to Rich first, is how much time and marketing budget should be spent on creating original content that's pulling people in around your thoughts and around your ideas versus just amplifying what you already have out there?
It depends really on the type of business and what the business is trying to achieve. For a thought leader or a business that is looking for thought leadership, then for sure, content. And, nowadays it's kind of crazy to say this, but also just if there's a personality behind the business, like opening up that personality, into a lot of the human element, that's what social media really thrives on. And you're at a disadvantage if you're not doing that. It's one of the things actually that we're working on right now for me, just listing out all the foods that I eat, listing out, all the weird human things about me so that things can be shared so that people can find it easier to know, like, and trust me. Right. And, it's so people can only consume so much heavy duty content. It's Jay and I have this deal that we're working on right now, and he's going to be meeting with this guy tomorrow. And this guy has a YouTube channel and he tells stories. And I was watching his videos, and because they're all story based, I found it so easy to go from one 20-minute video to the next 20-minute video to the next 20, because they were just interesting stories and they captivated my attention. Whereas I know with my videos, after someone watches a 20-minute video of mine, they're not busy thinking about another 20-minute video and another 20-minute video and another 20-minute video, because I'm telling them to stop watching and now go do something. But that's a problem, because that's not what YouTube wants. YouTube wants someone who's going to watch a lot, and if someone watches a lot, they're going to show that video a lot more. So, there's really a balance, I think. I think obviously the stuff that you want to make sure is out there is the stuff that positions you right, that really explains like, you know, the solutions you provide and the problems that you solve, most importantly. But I also think I've been guilty of it. And I think a lot of people who are like more on the guru side could also, are also guilty of it, of not doing the human thing. And that's not, I'm not talking about the cheesy stuff like, you know, standing in front of a helicopter or standing in front of your car collection or your mansion. I'm talking about, though, things that would get people to know you better, like what your life is like, what your favorite foods are, where you go, what you like, how you spend your free time. Like when you sit down and read a book, like where are you sitting down and reading? Do you have a cozy little alcove that you do that in? Just stuff like that. And so, you know, the bottom line is that people get online to either be, to get information or be entertained. Those are the two things, right? So like the more information you have out there and the more stuff that can be entertaining in some way, shape, or form, the better off you are, because there's just more places, more breadcrumbs for people to pick up the scent to find you and your site.
Really, just a comment on that. I think one of the common mistakes that we make is we assume that to do more, we need more, right? To increase our sales, we need more content, we need new products, rather than thinking about what do we have, how can we better use that. Myself and Rich sort of reached the same conclusion from very different ways. Said, what do we think is the number one cause of distress for an entrepreneur, right? Is to say it's one way of thinking about it is to say, I set a target for 100 for this year and I only got to 90, right? And now that 10 is really hanging over me like a dark cloud. That's one way. But a very different way of thinking about it is to think about, even if I had just one product or service, how many people in the world could benefit from that one product or service? Just one. And what you'll find out is that the gap now between how many people are actually buying your product and how many people could really benefit from your product is huge. And that's the gap that keeps us awake at night. And yet what we do...
That gap actually takes me over to Jay. And one of the questions that came in is, how do I accelerate the buying process from my clients? So you've got this one thing that you're selling, you now got your content, you've got your one thing that you're selling. How do you kind of give us some tips on how do we accelerate the buying process, if that makes sense? Or you can answer it in the way that you best know how.
Let's look at what accelerates someone's belief in the value you offer. First of all, you have to start by understanding that we had one of our early books, we had something that was almost funny, but it was true. We said, when somebody goes to the hardware store to buy a drill, they don't really want a drill, they want a hole. And they don't even want a hole, they want to fasten something. And they really don't even want to fasten something. They want to watch their 85-inch big screen TV on Netflix tonight, or they want to get water running out of the new faucet they're putting in, or they want the handle on the door to latch and lock. So the first thing is realize that you're really not selling something static. What is it they're buying, not what is it you're selling, okay? So the more you can focus on what they're buying and take them into that realization of what your product or service deployed in their life is going to do, that's good. The more you can demonstrate the performance certainty of your product through either testimonials, through through measurability, through design, intention, through composition, what it's composed of, through the team that's supporting it, to the people that are buying it, to the icons that, I mean, all of those things are denominators. But again, going to assumptions, most people's assumption is that you just want someone to tell you how great something is. I have found that it's much more powerful, and these are the kind of higher performing elements, when you denominate what it was like before, what it's like now, and what they think it's going to be like compounding. And most people just go, oh, I made $100,000 off of Rich's advice. instead of saying, I was lucky to break even on Facebook. In fact, I used to go negative and hope and pray they bought a second time. Now it is unbelievable. I'm making 3 times my money on every front end ad. The buyer's quality is such that half of them upgrade for another 50% more profit, and 80% are buying 3 times, whereas 10% were buying 3 times. That's a much more dimensional. Does that make sense to you?
Nope, no, it makes amazing sense.
And I can go on and on, but I don't.
I know. No,
I have to stop at the top of the
fabulous. And
hour,
it's,
so, yeah.
I want to make sure, and your guys' time is very valuable, and the audience is been here with us, and you guys have given lots of time and lots of your knowledge. And I wanted to thank you for that, because we're getting right to the end. So I didn't want to thank you so much for everything you've done. What's going to go out in the email tomorrow to everybody is Jay and Rich and Alan's their information, how you can track down more of their information, how you can engage with them more. There's also the LinkedIn group, which is where we're going to have the video. We're also going to have a re-engagement with Alan to kind of go through the Harmony app and make sure that people can really download it and go through some decisions. He's been doing some amazing stuff with Amazon and taking some things forward. But I wanted to thank you and come back around to you just one time, just one little, leaving it with one thing hanging in the air about what people should remember as they walk out of here, because Brian from Jay's team said there are 3 things that you need to walk out of here with, one from each of our amazing speakers. So what's one thing we can leave them with? And I'll start off with Alan, and then we'll work our way around to Jay.
Sure. I think my presentation was all focused around, why do good people make and often repeat bad decisions? We do it for good reasons. And there's now, a simple method, an app to help you find out what those good reasons are. I think when we discover these good reasons, you realize how easy it is to make bad decisions, right? And how hard it is to learn from them when you do. There's always infinitely more ways to fail than to succeed. In economics, they talk about poverty doesn't require explanation. Wealth does. Right? Failure doesn't require explanation. Success does, because there's so few ways to get it right. So that to me is the one thing, is first of all, give yourself and other people credit. It's easy to make bad decisions, hard to learn from them, but there is simple ways that you can go systematically to find out what those good reasons are and check and challenge them so you can make better, faster decisions when it really matters.
That's awesome. And I know that there's a lot of questions, and I'm coming to Rich next. There's a lot of questions that came in on the chat, and we'll put those out there so that Jay and Rich and Alan can respond in a way that will give them a little bit of a time to give you one or 2 sentences that we'll drop in there. But that was great, Alan. Over to you, Rich.
I would just say, spend more time with your results. Like, spend more time, like, when things don't go as planned, why didn't they go as planned? Like, if you want to start making better assumptions, if you want to have like a better gut instinct as it relates to your business, the only way that happens is by evaluating the decisions that you made after the fact, which ones were correct and on point, and why did you make that? Like, how were you able to do that? And which ones did you get wrong? And what led to you thinking about that incorrectly, so that in the future you can think better about it? I think that, a lot of people don't take, like, the best education they're ever going to get is from their own experience. And when they don't spend the time to actually analyze their own experience because they're too busy looking at everything else, they're really like not taking advantage of what would probably be the most useful and helpful thing for them.
That's awesome. That is, it's do what you've already done and figure it out. So Jay, over to you. Thank you very much, Rich.
Yeah, I'm going to make it simple. But before, BD, I like that quote you used in the beginning. Will you send that slide to me? I want to borrow it.
Perfect. I will give you Mark Twain's quote. That's great.
So I would say 2 things. Number one, it is so much easier to grow your bottom line than top if you understand the levers that have always been and will be available, number one. And number 2, when you start trying to grow your revenue, it's a reverse. Most people take on more and more risk as they try to go larger and larger. And the goal is to take on less and less. And if you're not doing that, then you're I think most people don't realize, they go, oh, I'm spending this or I'm spending that. I always say, no, you're not. You're an investor, whether you recognize it or not. Everything you're doing is an investment, theoretically and implicitly, you're doing for a yield. If you don't have any idea what you're investing in and you don't have any idea what the risk and the yield is, you're not an investor, you're a drunken speculator. That's my message.
Didi, just a final comment there, talking about return on investment. If our scarcest resource is our attention, right? We should think about not return on investment, but what I call ROMA, return on my attention. What are those activities that's going to give me the biggest possible return, allow me to make the most progress on my goal for my attention? If two things can both give me potentially $1 million, but the one thing will require 50 days of my attention and the other one 500 days of my attention, that's a very different way of evaluating, of treating my attention really as a scarce resource, and make sure that I allocate it to only those things that allows me to make meaningful progress towards my goals.
That's really good.
Jay Abram, Rich Schefren, and Dr. Alan Barnard, thank you so much for coming on Better Business, Faster Decisions. It's been a whirlwind, and it's been international. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this stuff.
I appreciate being around, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Cool.